Welcome everybody to our second bonus episode. We're going to recap season 1, talk a little bit about some directions and the thoughts behind those, and just kind of talk about our favorite highlights. How does that sound? So we'll start off with
you asked how does that sound, and so I felt like it was an appropriate response.
Bow! Bow! Queen of filth!
So, to get things started, just kind of want to talk about some what drove a lot of my decisions on where we went. And what I like doing is I like to look at big events and try and find weird things that could have influenced those events. Like in the Mongols, having weird ostriches that helped who was this? What was his name?
Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan take over China. Or like in Chicago, having a weird wrestler accountant try and fix Al Capone's books so he wouldn't get arrested. So yeah, that's what drove a lot of mine. In the first episode where we picked everyone up, I did work with everyone to figure out when they wanted to be picked up, what they wanted to be doing when they got picked up, and that's how we got some fun things like the Australian bushfires. And then everyone got shunted over to the Nazis. And my main reason with the Nazis was every time travel show ends up at the Nazis at some point.
So we just chose to get that out of the way immediately. Exactly.
So there's a few places that every time travel show ends up, and one is with the Nazis, and one is with some Western place, and we haven't gone there yet.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet.
But yeah, my main focus in the first 3 or 4 episodes was to really help bring everyone together and get Vic to try and lead everyone, so that way I could to get Vic to try and lead everyone and to get you all on the same footing, so I could take Vic away, and once they were gone, you would be able to keep going by yourself.
Little did you know.
We would all buck Vic's leadership earlier than you intended.
Yeah, I know.
And for everything you had planned in the shitter.
Oh my heavens! Yeah, with that, when we went to France, I don't know why I didn't think of you all thinking that Vic has a time ship.
It was absurd.
They kidnapped. It's completely absurd. They kidnapped Joan of Arc. I feel
like we're living in a day and age where you should just always question authority.
Yep.
I mean, you're not wrong.
No, I'm not.
But also, which authority? That's an important thing to...
All of them.
I'm not gonna... Yeah.
Anarchy!
As long as you're getting your information from Facebook, you're probably safe.
Shut up!
Oh man!
I sure hope no impressionable youth who listen to this podcast now go and check Facebook for their source of information.
It's horrible.
Listen, who do you trust more than family? Who do you trust more than your father?
Facebook?
I'm just saying, whatever
just
your
don't
dad
trust
says
your
is
father
probably
on
right.
Facebook. Oh, come on. This is not an episode of Let's Give Bad Advice.
Oh, can we do one of those?
Yes, but in character.
Oh. I think chaos would reign in that episode.
Yep.
Giving bad advice
Exactly.
is a fairly popular format for podcasts. You have My Brother and Me, and also Seth Rogen.
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. Anyway.
Although Seth Rogen is not great.
Sorry.
Different.
Seth Rogen, you're fine. I'm sorry.
We know you're listening. We're sorry.
Little does everyone know, Seth Rogen, one of our listeners.
I have to say that, like, as far as moments of surprise in season 1 goes, because I feel like, Dan, you did such a good job of, like, building up this story and like laying that foundation, as you said, rolling with the punches, as we said. But it's always good to have twists and turns and unexpected things happen. It makes the story interesting. And I definitely think that one of the most unexpected moments was when Mike Tosis showed up.
Yeah.
Because up to that point, we really hadn't faced an enemy that had like super hurt us or done anything too bad. Like we hadn't really suffered any consequences. And then we met Mike Tosis and we were like, oh, okay, well, we're all almost dead.
And that was when we learned how the combat system worked.
Yeah, that's everything was that I was creating. I felt like was leading up to that 4th session with Mike Tosis in Chicago, because I wanted to make sure that Vic was taken away from you. I was using the trope with missing mentor, because I really wanted to. I felt like if I did not take Vic away from the party, then you'd all be relying on them way too much. So I knew
Little did you know, we didn't rely on them at all.
No, you didn't.
In fact, we probably should have relied on them a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes.
But yeah, the great source of information, great source of leadership and telling you what to do. And yep, not all of that went out the window. So it really didn't make a difference when Vic. but it
gave us different motivation.
It did. And once you all were like, hey, Vic is sus, we got to take down Vic, that changed my motivation in taking Vic away, from taking the mentor away to now I have to find a way to redeem Vic, so that you all start wondering if Vic was actually a bad guy or a good guy. So,
person. Yeah. Bad person or good person.
So, yeah, but that 4th session with Mike Tosis, that was a lot of fun to do, to bring in someone that, could punt Zoo out a window.
Yeah.
Worst
no one else could do that.
Ever.
Now, I don't know if Zoo ever found out what was going on with his magic, why he couldn't turn into what he was trying to. All the clues were there.
Did you find out?
It was
I
mentioned,
think
but
the listeners found out more than Zoo did, because like Zoo, like you mentioned the talisman, but more out of like, like out of the reality, and so like I as Keith was like, hey, that's a bad talisman, but Zoo was like, why the hell am I a dog? And ow, as he like flew out the window. There wasn't really a lot of time for him to be like, hey, that talisman looks sus. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. Actually, like one thing that I wonder about is like with, it's interesting because Blythe was such a elusive villain, right? Like Mike Tosis was, I'm gonna stand here and crush you. But Blythe's main power was to be able to zip out of trouble whenever she needed to. And so I thought it was
why
really,
I had to
really
head
cool.
butter.
Yes, very good. One of my favorite moments of the whole season. But I thought it was really cool to like set those two up together as a team, because it really like they sort of complemented each other, and they made it so that we had a really hard time finding a hole in the defense, right? Because if it was just Blythe and she's just running away, eventually we back her into a corner and we get her. But that wasn't possible until we were able to work as a team to defeat Mike Tosis, right? Like he was this barrier to like actually succeeding with Blythe. So I thought that the NPCs, not just the villains, but all the NPCs that you created were really intentional and beneficial. Like it never felt like we just had a character, except for the little girl in the last session.
Ursula?
I kept forgetting about Ursula.
She was the only one. But other than that, we didn't really have any like needless NPCs. They really blended well together. They complemented each other. And they
How dare you say that
so
Ursula was
cool.
needless?
She didn't even get us into the castle, for starters. We had to still get in by ourselves. And then as soon as we got in, she peaced out. She was so useless.
So you say that, but the funny thing is I have in my notes from the Nazi session that it was seriously a dice roll if you would run into Jake Baum or not.
Oh
It was
my
seriously
gosh.
a dice
That's
roll, and
crazy.
it was yeah. So it was like, hey, if I roll this, then Jake will show up and we'll try and stop you all, and then you get a talk with him. No, if I didn't, so yeah, it was Jake was
That's
brought around by
crazy.
a dice
Wow,
roll
so
that
you
you ran
mean-
into him.
You mean we could have avoided all of our Jake encounters?
Yes.
I say that as me and Nathan were both like, the funniest moments of the season were Jake Baum.
Problematic for the rest of us.
Okay. Speaking of Blythe, I really liked the documents that we uncovered throughout the season that were blacked out, redacted. I thought that those were a cool way to give information without giving too much information, and was a cool reveal later.
And another thing that you had to do on the fly, because
It
we
was.
wouldn't have needed the documents if Vic was still our trusted captain.
I had other ways to give out similar information, but when all of a sudden you're like, Vic is sus, let's mutiny. I was like, well, crap, what are we gonna do now?
Yeah. Like, this brings up, like, we're sort of all talking about it, but the highlights of the season. You know, like, if you had to say to people, go listen to this episode, it's the best episode, like, what would that be for everybody?
I feel like the simulation arc still stands out to me.
Yes.
That
Yes,
was
that
that
one
was
was
some of
excellent.
our best.
Yeah, that was with that one. I knew that taking Vic away, I wanted to do something different. One, to give you all time to. Well, I didn't want to give you any time to try and figure out what happened to Vic. So I knew I needed to do something immediately and something completely different.
I felt like it was so well genred. Like, I feel like we didn't really have any particular genre other than kind of like superhero problem solving kind of stuff throughout the season, but that one was really well done in like typical comedy horror movie style, and I really, really liked that and thought that it was a standout experience.
And I know you all hated my some of my logic with, well, let's just move this desk. Well, guess what? In a video game, you can't move that desk. So
Oh my gosh. The
What
table
was
topping
and was
moment,
not.
that's a highlight.
Yeah.
That episode.
Oh.
I gotta say, for me, one of my favorite episodes would be the super soldiers in New York. I felt like all of us got to really kind of like intervene in that story in a unique way for our characters. So that was a highlight for me for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
that session was a lot of fun. You all did test me again with splitting up the party in 2 different timelines. But with that one, I really wanted to, now that Vic was gone, I really wanted you to all really focus on becoming a team. So
So that's why we went to 2
groups.
different
3
timelines.
groups, 2 timelines. We made a team.
I
I'll
think part of the
never-
reason why the mitosis encounters were so impactful was because I think those were the only times that we weren't on the ship that we were all together.
That may be true.
What were you going to say, Sarah?
Oh, I was just thinking about how Chaos and Effie went back to where they already existed and were tempted by the backs of their heads.
Yes.
The best
the
space
lore.
rule. That is
And
the
we-
best lore I've ever heard.
You and I riffed on that like for probably 20 minutes.
Yep, poor Keith.
I also feel like the season finale was a really big highlight. I feel like there was a lot of stuff building to it. Obviously, 23 episodes. But I feel like a lot of stuff happened in a short amount of time, and it was really impactful, and I felt like gave a lot of cool stuff to go into the second season with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm really excited to see where the second season goes.
I think acting highlight the moment between like Zoo and Shah where there was the accident with the scars. I felt like both of us sort of, both of those characters and the growth there and it felt torturous to edit, and not for the usual reason. It just felt really sad and really intense. I thought it was great, and there's been so many acting highlights that I've loved. Like, for example, Girl Scouts in the forest. I
my gosh,
died
yes.
every time Effie talked about getting cookies in Mongol China.
I must have eaten a whole bunch because I broke their teepee. I mean,
They're yurt.
yes, I know it wasn't teepee.
I have to say,
lab.
I feel like Sarah is the absolute best at finding just the most random, inane stuff to make hilarious, and then letting it like continue and become a whole thing. Like, I just feel like you're able to pick like the one or two thing for each session. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the Girl Scout cookies in the forest, I think, set a tone that we're like, okay, this is our tone now. Like,
I loved how that came back when Effie and Chaos went back in time. She brought back the Girl Scout cookie terms again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, that was great.
Throwback.
Yeah. I really appreciate recording with people that are funnier than me because I feel like it elevates my humor.
Yeah, if I could go back and talk about the finale some more.
Go for it, yeah.
So Logan will attest to this, but from the beginning of the season, before we started recording, I kept telling Logan, I really want to have a ship-to-ship battle. I want to have a ship-to-ship battle. And so I was so happy to finally be able to do it. And then when when you all crashed in Nuremberg, Bavaria, well, you didn't crash, but Blythe did. That time, so that was an actual date, April 14th, Nuremberg, Bavaria. Several people had a mass hallucination where they saw heavenly bodies. And they saw all these weird things happening in the sky.
like Marilyn Monroe, or
No.
okay.
Sorry.
They saw
like
weird things
I
happening in the
apologize.
sky
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
called
Like
heavenly
Effie
bodies.
Derringer.
Yep. And so my thoughts with that was during your battle, when you're being shifted out of time and back in time, and they were seeing Blythe's ship being shot at, and all the angels, or the what do we call them? The appipigeons, the time
Temporal
appipigeons,
apparitions.
Pigeons.
the temporal apparitions shooting at both of your ships, and then Blythe's ship just gets sucked into that time and crashes.
That's awesome.
I loved all the times that you found anomalies or weird things, and or even normal things, and gave them a supernatural twist or a super powered twist. The issues we had to face blended in with the history, where you could be like, you know what? Yeah, that could make sense. If that was a thing, if time travel was real, I could see how this would be a problem. And it's weird to say in our fantasy actual play time traveling superhero podcast, but you really added some realism to the story, and I appreciated that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and talking about that, with Joan of Arc, we didn't really touch on Joan of Arc much except for the mutiny. The Joan of Arc, I couldn't get an exact date, but she was about that old when she saw God, when she says she saw God and God gave her her mission.
Right.
And so I was like, well, what if it was actually a time
Chaos
traveler?
is a god.
It was a time traveler
Confirmed.
that took her
Yeah,
from her
Chaos is a
time,
god.
that took her from her time into another time to show her who she needed to be.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. It all kind of, it worked, and it was fun.
It was
I really
clever.
enjoyed that. It was very clever. Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
I really enjoyed doing all of that.
Yeah.
I found it a lot of fun to go through time, and I had I can't tell you how many tabs I had open of major events in history, and I was going through them all and trying to figure out, well, what if this happens at this event, and how can we go and intervene? That was a lot of fun.
Major hats off to both Dan and Keith, who have spent so much time,
Did you end up
incomprehensible
calculating?
amount of times, No, I did
figure it
not,
out?
because I was so like, oh my gosh, it's so much. Yeah, the
22
amount of
times
time
3 times 3, right? Oof.
the amount of time that both of you have put into making this season as amazing as it has been, like, huge thanks, and I hope that you guys feel like you have accomplished an amazing thing.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
So-
definitely.
I'm really interested in season 2, so like I think we should start
I am
talking
too.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is good time for the pass off, Dan.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, season 2. I think it's going to be amazing. We've set up some things, and we're going to go find who was behind killing Effie's dad. I'm excited to bring in my own character, and I'm mostly excited to see Logan GM in his GMing style. So
Woohoo!
Logan,
Why would you say mostly excited?
it's something
You
a
meant
bit different.
Most excited.
Okay, fine. I'm most excited to actually roleplay. But with that, since I want to roleplay, we need to have a new GM. And there, Logan, passing the baton on to you. Hopefully we'll see, I know we'll see some great things in season 2.
So I could describe how I like to GM, but most of you have experienced me as a GM. What would you tell listeners?
So the big difference, here's the thing, right? Dan, you don't know this, but on the Discord, we kind of sometimes kept track of the amount of times that we
No,
influenced you
Keith!
to roll
Don't
dice.
say this!
We have to say it.
Okay,
How
there is
many
a secret
times-
channel that I created in the Discord, and it's called Jokes on the GM. So, Logan, get ready to have a ton of jokes on you.
Why was
No,
I
but
never
here's the
part of
thing.
this channel?
Because we knew you
scared
were
of
going to
you.
GM.
Here's the thing. You can get away with that with Dan. Dan is the kind of GM, like, if you're like, hey, Dan, you should roll for that, he'd be like, you know what? Yeah, okay. That,
No, okay. So
that
this is what
not
I wanted
gonna
to say.
fly
This
with
is
Logan.
exactly what I wanted to say about Logan, is that I feel like it's just us getting rickrolled the whole time, which means that it's specifically the part where he goes, you know the rules, and so do I. Whenever we want to do something ridiculous, I feel like that's Logan's response.
So, yeah, I think, we joke about you being strict or a hard ass or whatever, but I think the main difference is just going to be, like, the tone or the feel of it. I think that your style is such that you have a real story you want to tell, and you're going to work with us to get that story told. You always have. But I think that to me is the main difference, is that wouldn't work on you, but that definitely worked on Dan.
I really wanted to tell a collaborative story and have everyone involved. That was my main thing, is make sure that
Dan-
everyone was involved. So
Dan's
You
just
did
over
great.
here
You
being
did a
super
great job.
wholesome. Yeah, Dan's over here being super wholesome, and then Logan's over here like, how can I make everyone hurt?
Well, I don't think
It's
that's
really difficult.
no, it's
Logan's-
more
Logan's
of
goal.
hey,
Yeah,
yeah,
Logan's
like you
goal
said,
is not to make us hurt.
no, it's
Logan's goal
like,
is to make sure that if we say something stupid, that something stupid will happen to us.
yes,
True.
because
Yeah, Nathan, that hurts me.
The Mongol episode is a great example, because in the Mongol episode, you're all like, "Hey, we want to throw a light show," and I'm like, "What? Sure, go ahead. Let's see how you can influence these guys. Go ahead." But if you did that with Logan, in the wrong time period with the wrong people, bad things might happen.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have ever watched the movie White Christmas, but I watch it every year and sometimes multiple times a year around Christmas time. And in the very first scene, the general, who is a beloved character and everyone loves him, and he pretends like he's strict, but he's really just a big softie. He is talking to the other general, and the other new general replacement guy's like, what are they doing on Christmas? And General Ravy's like, oh, well, there's always a little bit of slip up whenever there's a change in management. And then the guy goes, well, that's bad, and I'm angry, and I'm grumpy, and they're never going to be able to do that with me. And that's what I feel like Dan just described.
Well, you said it exactly. It's we should know the rules by now.
I'm angry and I'm grumpy.
No, it's no with the Rickroll. We should know the rules by now. We figured we were playing around with the rules in season 1. We should know the rules by now, and it's not time to bend the rules or break them. If we try and bend the rules, we're just going to run up against the wall, and he will set us on the right path.
I will personally edit a video clip of that for you, Logan, that you can just post in the Discord anytime any of us do something stupid. And I do want to clarify for the listener and everyone on this podcast, I don't actually think that Logan is just grumpy and curmudgeonly. Logan is a great guy and he's very fun to play with.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, because we've been talking about Logan cracking down on us a whole bunch, but one of the strengths that I found anytime I do role-playing games with Logan, whether he's the GM or not, is that he is very character-driven and character-focused. He doesn't just have a story for us, he has a story for me and for Sarah and for Dan. And so one of the things I'm looking forward to the most with having Logan as a GM is the character growth that Zoo, I know, is going to experience. And, Dan said it before, we set up some great stuff, especially in the finale of season 1. There's some trauma, there's some success and some failure and some loss. And one of the things that is Logan's strength is taking what we've set up and using it really effectively. So I'm really excited for that. So Logan, to answer your question, you might be a hard ass, but you will get the most out of our characters.
And I'm really excited for that. That's going to be really great. I know that one of my focuses, and I've said this before, was to make sure that in season 1 you'd all be brought together as a team. Now it's time to explore who each of you really are, and Logan is the best person for that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I like that Logan has consequences. You're very good at the yes and.
Yeah, I mean, I can make you a few promises. You're not always going to like what I do to you. But I will try my very best to always make what I do to you justified. I want you to make hard decisions. I want you to take control of the story in ways that I don't necessarily like. And as long as you can justify it to me, I'll be okay with that. I do plan on focusing on the characters, and I'm excited to explore some different pieces of history. I've recently come to the conclusion that I enjoy studying history, but I don't actually like history because all of history is terrible.
Yes.
So we're gonna visit some places where history is terrible. And I want to see how your characters work with that. I want to see what you all do when maybe you're held accountable for a little bit more. Board shorts might get some questions.
Dang it.
Resorting to violence first or intimidation might have some consequences.
Right. Yep. Makes sense.
Because you are super powered, but you're only 5 people. And as
we're not really that super powered, other than
mildly super
other than Zoo and Effie.
And we're also going to be finding out in this next season that there's a lot of other time travelers, and they all have their own goals.
That's cool.
We're gonna look at some of the banality of evil. I mean, all of the chaos from last generation or last season was all Blythe just trying to make money by selling military weapons to bad time periods.
I have to admit that anytime I hear the word chaos now, I do just think of your character. And so I thought you were talking about your character, Chaos, and I was like, yeah, chaos, and then you were like, Blythe, and I was like, oh, no.
And as much as I love Chaos, he's just going to hang out on the ship for a while, and I'm okay with that.
He's a good ship hanger-outer.
He is the best ship hanger-outer because he'll just play video games all the time.
Nice.
It's what he secretly wanted all along, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, he has access to all the video games from all points in time. And he's just going to hang out and do that and drink some Mountain Dew Code Red and, all those other things that he thinks are edgy
G-Fuel.
but are not.
Amazing.
Get some chili dog G Fuel.
So anyway,
That's actually a
buckle
really
down.
awesome place, to end.
And
with that
I'm
happy note.
excited for this.
Well, then all I have to say is, on to season 2, away!
And you'll all get that in 2 weeks.